All right, everyone. I feel like we went through weeks and weeks of doing design, learning the basics of programming to get to this moment, especially for this class, because this class has kind of been focused on web development for a certain, doing HTML, CSS. We know how to, write a very basic web page. I'm just going to write a basic web page. Don't worry about what I'm doing, but like, I have a basic web page here, right? And this is some HTML, right? And if I wanted to, I could stylize this. So, I'm just going to add some CSS here. Color equals red, font equals, Arial black, text decoration equals underline. Okay. Now, that's nice. And, we can write HTML and we can write CSS. We can actually also use JavaScript, or in this case, P5, to write HTML for us. Okay. In other words, like I can use JavaScript to create elements like this H1 or like a paragraph, like I'm doing here, like a P tag, something like this, as opposed to me handwriting it. Now you kind of ask, like, why would we need to do that? There's going to be times when you have interactive projects that maybe you want to add HTML to an existing document or maybe add CSS. So for instance, like, let's even just go to like the website here. It's like, if I were to go here and click on this, see how this kind of like adds out? What's really happening here is it's like adding in an unordered list to an existing web page. And then I click on it and it basically removes that unordered list. Okay. And so that's something we can't, that's the only way to sort of add it and subtract it on the fly, so to speak, is to use a programming language like JavaScript. Okay. So you can use JavaScript, or in this, P5 in this case, to add HTML elements to an existing page. Okay. So let's start this off. Just this is exercise one, and I just want you guys to understand before we do anything how the page is set up. Okay. It's a basic HTML page. I don't have any JavaScript, or sorry, any CSS. I did add the P5 library right here as a CDN. Okay. And I kind of just, set up some basic stuff here for you. So there is, I'm using this new function here called no canvas. The reason why is what we're doing is not going to appear in a canvas. It's actually just going to appear in the web page itself. Okay. So at least for now, I'm not trying to like add any I'm not trying to add anything to a canvas. We're really just building a web page. Okay. Now notice that in my body right now, I don't have any HTML elements, right? There's no H1, H2. I don't have any P tags or anything like that. What I'm going to do is in my JavaScript or in my P5, I'm going to use a function called create P. What does create P do? Well, it creates a P tag. Okay. It takes an argument. The argument is the text that would actually go within the HTML tag. So if, or sorry, the HTML tag, the P tag here. So if I say something like hello world, like this, okay, what's going to happen is this tells it not to defaultly make a canvas. This says, hey, add or, create a P tag like this, add it to the page. Now, what normally happens is it's going to add it to the bottom of your page. So whatever is available, that's just going to be what's there. Eventually, we can add it to specific places, or we could use CSS to help with that. And then this part is what's going to go here. Boom. All right. So let's see if this works out the way we think. I'm going to preview this bad boy. Okay, so it did make a paragraph, and let's just double check my page here, my elements. And look at that, okay? It did make a p tag. Now, if you're wondering about this main tag, remember the main is for the main part. This is actually created by your P5 library. Your P5 library, when you do all this setup and everything, it actually makes a main tag for you automatically, even though that's not part of the normal page. There's probably a way for me to get rid of that. I'm just kind of lazy, but you will notice that it is making that p tag, and that's adding to my page, right? And let's make another one. Create P, I don't know, this is another paragraph, okay? Once again, this is a function. What does it do? It builds a P tag. This is the argument that goes inside of it. What is this? In this case, this adds the text, okay? And if I go back, there's my first P tag, there's my second P tag, okay? All right, let's try another one, okay? There's another function called create a. What does create a do? It makes a hyperlink, okay? What you do is you use the function create a, and I believe what you put the argument or the argument is a string. The string is the URL that you want it to be. So for instance, if I wanted this to be linked to SF state, I'm going to highlight here. This is the URL. It should be something like HTTPS or, HTTP :// www.something.com.edu.org, that kind of thing. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to come back in here. All right. So this, like the last one, this is going to create an A tag for me. It's going to look like this. Okay. It's actually going to automatically also add that href HTML attribute I was talking about. And it's going to put this actually, really what's actually happening here is it's doing an href. I apologize. This is not inside of it. Just imagine it is. And it's going to take this and it's going to do like that. Okay. I want to double check that I'm doing this correctly. It's been a little while. So how do you check this kind of stuff? Well, lucky, the answer to most coding questions is check the documentation. So let's go to p5js.org and reference, and we want to go to where it says DOM or document object model. The document object model is how the HTML is built. There's create a. And yeah, so the first thing is the URL. The second thing is what the actual label will be. So if this is supposed to be for SF state, let's do SF state link. Let's get rid of my little document, my little things here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, I'm going to save. Let's go back. Oops, wrong page though. We're so close. There we go. All right. So this part became that. This became, this is the URL. Let's just double check to see what happens here. And if I click and I look at this, you can see it created an A tag with an href, and it put that as the value of that HTML attribute, right? And if I click on this, it should go to SF state. All right, let's do one more. Maybe I want it to go to Amazon. All right. So I'm going to just copy the URL, create a. That's the URL it's going to go to. And then whatever you want the link to be, link to Amazon, go. Okay, let's go back. Actually, what's going to actually happen here is A tags are inline elements. So it's actually going to go to the next one. You can use CSS to fix that problem. There you go. So if you're at, if you want to know how to fix that, I would probably you could use CSS to kind of like make them block elements or something so they display on different lines. There's different ways you could do things, but just don't worry about that right now. Right now, we're just kind of like learning how to use JavaScript to create DOM objects or HTML elements. So if I click on this, it does go to Amazon. You can also create IMG tags. You guys know what IMG tags are from our first project. It would look something like this. So I actually have a puppy. Aw, everyone say aw, right? And I'm gonna go back, and if this was a normal situation, I'd have something like this, puppy.jpg, right? And that would create a dog picture, right? You can do that as JavaScript by doing create img, okay? So the create img is the function. The value is the file name and its location, okay? So in this case, puppy.jpg, okay? And if I do that, see how that works. Remember that images are also inline elements defaultly, so that's why this is going in line. If your element was in a subfolder, you're going to have to do the whole file management thing that we've talked about before, just like you guys did in that zoo lab. So I'm just going to make a subfolder called images, just for the sake of it. And let's move that puppy photo into it. So this would, in theory, not work now, and it doesn't. But if I tell it to go inside of that folder and then find puppy.jpg, then it should work. And there you go. Okay. So, if you're going to do this, just make sure that wherever your JavaScript is referencing the file correctly. If it's in a subfolder, if it's not, you don't have to worry about that. So that's cool and everything. Now, you can actually go to the documentation here. And you can see that there's a lot of like just kind of functions that build various HTML elements. So like create P makes a P tag, create span makes a span tag, create input makes an input tag, all the various, you can see that a lot of these are just kind of elements that we've made before, checkbox and all this kind of stuff. Now, what if, there's not a function for every single element, right? Like, we know that you go to W3 schools, and I'm going to scroll down to tag list right here. So these are every single HTML element that currently exists. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument, I want to create an element that doesn't have one of these like specified functions already built for it, right? Maybe let's just say for the sake of argument, I want to make an EM tag. Okay, you guys remember an EM tag? That's our friend, it makes things italic. And I don't think there's a specific function for that. It's not. But here's what you can do. Okay, if there's not a specific function, you can use this function called create element. And what this will do is it'll actually make any HTML element you want. Okay, what you do is you use the function, you give it the name of the tag, and then what's going to appear inside of that tag. Okay, so what I mean by that is I'm going to go to exercise 3. And once again, this is kind of just a regular setup. We have the CDN being linked here and all of this. So what I'm going to do is use the function create element and then figure out which tag do I want to make. Let's use the EM tag. So that actually goes in as a string. And then what should be inside of the EM tag? So I'm just going to write something like this is going to be italic. Okay. This is going to be the tag. This is going to be what's made. So what should happen is it should make something that looks like this. This should be the result. when all's said and done. Okay. I'm gonna save and let's go back. I gotta preview the correct page. And there you go. All right. Let's, do a little inspect here, and we can see that the EM element was created. This is our element, or the thing that's inside of the tag. And I can literally do this for any type of tag. I don't think there is a create header tag. So I could say, okay, create element, header, I don't know, text. This text will be inside the header. Technically, I don't have to put anything inside of here. So like headers don't have to have text inside of them. But I could do that. So if I go back, you can see how it made a header here and it put text inside of it. Technically, I don't have to do that for the, I could have just left this blank. I think I have to put something, but I can make it blank. Keep in mind, this is not a JavaScript specific function. This is a P5 function. So, you'd want to look at the documentation on the P5 JavaScript library. But you can see how I have the element in my page, it's just empty, right? So you can make empty ones too, if that's something that you want to do. I don't know, what else have we created? We've made a lot of stuff, right? The EM tag, the strong tag, the P tag, I don't know, the U tag, header, footer, lists, whatever. Maybe I want to make a list. Create elements. I'm going to make an unordered list. That would be a UL, right? And so this is only going to make the UL element. I can't defaultly make all the children, just so you're aware. I mean, I could make those, but those have to be in a separate function. I can't do it all in one function. And I'm going to say, actually, I'll just leave this blank. And I don't know. What else could I do? Strong tag, maybe? Strong. This is going to be full. Okay. All right, there's my UL, which right now is empty because I'd have to add an LI, which I can do, but there's something that's going to happen. So if I were to make an LI, which I could do using the same create element tag, what's going to happen actually is it's going to make it, but it's not going to be a child of UL, which we'll talk about. So you can see that it does exist, but it's not a child of this, and that's going to actually lead to some issues, and we'll talk about how you can fix that problem. But for now, what's cool about this is I can literally use JavaScript to make any HTML tag I want. What's nice about this create element is it doesn't matter if they invent new HTML tags in the future, which they probably will at some point. This will work for any tag, okay? Any tag that comes out, just say the name of it, and then say the element, what kind of element would go inside, and that's what you got to do, okay? All right, so I want you guys to try that out. That's 1, 2, and then 3, okay?